Jumbo fellow adventurers, it's Mike Dooley. Time to go live for a Monday morning tune-up. This week's topic is writing for fun and profit. Facebook, I hope you're there. It doesn't look like it, but I'm going to keep on going anyway for you all on Instagram, and then we'll just redo this later for Facebook. So, writing for fun and profit. That's what this whole week's about. Post your questions below. I teased that this might be the topic for the week on Friday, and there was a lot of confirmation from you all that this is something you wanted to dive into. I'm going to cover a little bit of everything this week on writing, based on what I know you would like me to share about being published, about being self-published. Do you need an agent? Foreign rights? What to write, when to write, how to get your ideas, what the process is, all of that's on tap this week. But most importantly, I do want your questions below. So on Facebook or Instagram, if you have a question that is somewhat universal, that can be answered and help many people at one time, please post below. So the first thing I want to tell you about creative writing and writing for fun or profit. It's in you. You can do it. There are overnight successes every day of the week. Now with self-publishing and digital publishing, it could not be easier, nor an easier market to get into. You don't have to print 2,000 books like back in the day when I started and then sit on them in your garage. You don't have to peddle those books from store to store to store like Wayne Dyer so famously did as he started his writing career. If you have that feeling, and I know it well, had it my whole life, that there was a book inside of me, then I can tell you for sure there's a book inside of you. And when you write it, there will be people who want to read it. Just know this to the depth of your being. One of the many guidelines I'm going to offer this week, however, is pertaining to motivation. I think there's 3 reasons to write. Okay, either you do it for yourself and it's therapy, go for it, okay? Or if you want to write for other people, the challenge of it, the artistry of it, in being useful, being of service, then that means you either have something to say or a story to tell. So either you're doing it for self-healing, go for it, or, and this is what the week is about, you have something to say or a story to tell. And if you've got something to say or a story to tell, this is what people want from you. As far as your own therapy, well, that might even be marketable, but that's another thing for some other day. So please don't be motivated for getting your stuff out there solely by money. Okay, I know too well that that feeling one has. Not only is there a book inside of me, but I'd like to quit my job and move out of town and find a log cabin and F you to the world. I'm going to write a book. It's going to be a bestseller, and I'm going to live happily ever after. And if that's where you're coming from, there's some other underlying issues that need to be resolved. Okay, if you have a runaway dream, whether or not it's to be a writer or somehow escape an escapism dream, there's some underlying issues, because life is beautiful and you are powerful and you can live on your own terms, and there's no need nor reason to go be a hermit in the woods for avoiding responsibility or these other underlying issues. So it's perfectly all right if you want to say something, you've got something to say and a story to tell, and become rich as heck, okay? Nothing unspiritual about that. Let your motivation be in part about finance, that's okay, but it shouldn't just be about finance. And if you're being led because of financial reasons and you don't really have something to say, but you can make something up, or you don't really have a story, but you can make something up, don't go there. Go do something else. Maybe you're better with people. Maybe you're better with animals. Maybe there's other ways you can express your creativity. So this week is mostly for those folks who have something to say or a story to tell. It could be a real life story. It could be an autobiography. It could be pure fiction. It could be for kids. It could be for adults. But you just have this yearning. For me, I have always felt like I had something to say, and it was pertaining to the nature of reality, who we are, how we got here, what we can do with our time and space. And for the first part of my life, I was answering those questions or finding answers to those questions, so I wasn't really ready to write. And this leads me to one of the second points I wanted to make for you all. There can be a tendency to know it's possible. You got something to say, you got a story to tell, something you survived to help other people survive, and you're just like ready to go. Well, I can tell you, number one, you don't want to rush it, and number two, you don't want to delay. And you're going to understand what I'm talking about in just a minute. I was so eager to write my book, and sometimes to run away, that I would, sit down on a weekend or one time for a whole summer in my early 30s and just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I got to tell you, being honest with myself, and this is of paramount importance to all of us, it sucked. It was really bad. It was like I just couldn't hold that thought long enough to connect dots, to make points, to parlay all these piecemeal thoughts into one fluid book. And it took a whole summer, every single weekend. No beach, no fun. And I ended up really hating writing. And I simply wasn't ready. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you won't eventually be ready. That just means that certain things are settling in your mind and it's just not time right now. How do you know? Because you tried. Okay? On the other end of the coin, I put down the pen and put away my keyboard, and I still talked a lot about writing a book one day. And finally, my sister, dearest heart in the world, said, Mike, you've been talking about that book for 15 years now. You better write that book. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I better. And it's like, okay, this is it. This is really it. And that's when you go and then you find you've got some traction. You've matured enough. And I could have waited a little longer and just told everybody the story I'm going to write one day. We each have it within us to know the truth about who we are, where we are, what we can do with our time and space, and when. And if you write and it sucks, you know the truth. And if you're putting it off because it was too solitary and you're just not ready to bite into it, then you know that you're doing that, and it's time to just batten down the hatches and do it. The only way to know where you are in that scheme of things is to start writing. And either you hit a roadblock or it's like, hey, this is going somewhere. So now what I want to do is share with you a few ideas on how to get some traction if you are starting to feel like, this is it. This is my time. I'm going to start doing it. If you want to write nonfiction, which is primarily what I've done with a few little exceptions, 2 kids' books and a 1 adult book would be categorized as fiction. If you want to write nonfiction, the game plan I have for you that has worked like a charm for me is you start with the title. The title. What does this book have to live up to? That title is going to be all important. And here's your assignment. I want you to write down 50 possible titles. You know the genre. You know how you want to help people. You know what you want to speak to. What would be some good possible titles? And then I want you to write down 50 subtitles, because the nonfiction books typically have a subtitle. You don't have to have one, but it's very handy, and people want to know what they're going to get themselves into. Unlike fiction books, which have the craziest titles and you have no idea what it is. Nonfiction, go there. Tell people what's in it for them. A great title and a subtitle that explains it all in a very exciting, compelling, empowering way. By the time you write your 50, and if you already have a title, do this exercise anyway. And make sure you get a title that you're like, oh, damn, that's good. And then you share it with other people and they're like, you're going to write that? Come on, you're not a writer. You want to blow their minds with the damn title. Just do the title. 50 titles, 50 subtitles, and then pick which ones go best with the other. Rank them, share them more with your friends and family. This is really important. Why? Because when it comes to any manifestation in these sacred jungles of time and space, thoughts become things. You are to begin with the end in mind. The end result. What's the end result? It's that title. This is the title. This is what I'm going to live up to. This is what my chapters will be building towards. So you write the title first, and then crystal clear, you know exactly where this baby's going. Then, after you've done that whole thing, it might take days or it might take weeks. It's worth it. And you can always change the title and tweak it later on, or start over with the title if you really felt the call to it. But after you come up with the title, I want you to come up with the chapters that you need in a book that must live up to that title. Okay? And I came up with Infinite Possibilities, The Art of Living Your Dreams. I got to talk about Thoughts Become Things. That was chapter 1. I got to talk about the power of beliefs. I got to talk about emotions and intuition. I got to talk about taking action. I got to talk about other people and can you manipulate them? How do you work it in relationships? Blah, blah, blah. I got to talk about a loving universe, the magical universe. So what? And that's how I came up with the titles for Infinite Possibilities. I had to begin with the end. The end always forces the details. The end told me what chapters I needed. And then logically, you're going to have to outline each chapter. If you're going to have a chapter called Thoughts Become Things, what building blocks do you need? And you start mapping it all out, either with longhand and a pen or a computer. People ask all the time, I use a computer. I never use longhand. I know that my mom only used longhand. I know it works different for different people. There's so much leeway and latitude. You can do it your own way. You can do a poster board. You can draw pictures. There's lots there. Okay, I want you to always feel the joy in the project. Okay, and if you're feeling so much pressure that there's no joy, it's probably you and how you're choosing to see the assignment. Now I know sometimes life puts pressure on us and there's a deadline and you're out of money and you need to get a new landlord and you got to write this book. But writing a book is a long haul. Okay, even if it's a short book, even if it's a kid's book, you're not going to write it in a month and get paid in 2 months. Okay, it's going to be a major project. So in the meantime, as I shared last week for entrepreneurs, get a day job. Many of you replied, I don't have a day job. How can I keep my day job? Because that was my advice last week. Do what you can to get a day job. Do what you can to make some money. Do what you can as a contractor. Do what you can with what you got from where you are. We all have to deal with that. And at different points in our lives, it's more difficult for some than others. But you keep trying. You keep at it. What I'm saying is do not put your entire life on hold so that you can write this book. Okay? That's a non-working formula. Your book will come along better if the rest of your life, to the degree manageable, is already balanced. You already have income. You're already provided for, or you're already working. There is no shame in having a day job and writing in the evenings, writing on the weekends. That was how I started all of my projects. And when I became a writer, I still had all these other projects. Speaking and events and travel. And it's the best thing you could do for yourself as a writer, in my limited experience, is to have other stuff going on at the same time. Work, entrepreneurialism, a social life, that will feed you and nourish you so that you don't become this hermit who's cut off from the world in the name of writing a book and saving humanity while you wither and fade away. All right, I have a lot more to share, hardly scratched the surface, but ask your questions below. Thank you so much, everybody on Facebook, Elizabeth, Rebecca, Sandy. Oh, you guys are all going to be amazing writers one day. Sharon, Rose, Betsy, I'm glad Facebook got their act together. Sue, glad you're here. And then on Instagram, Maggie, Mary Lee, so happy you're here. Manya, I love your name. Tessa, and what are you a fear of? That's good. All right. Tally ho, amigos. Write your questions below, Facebook or Instagram. See you tomorrow.